pressing on. Yes, I'm pressing on. Well, I'm pressing on to the higher calling of my Lord. Welcome to Songs of Experience, a Bob Dylan podcast where we explore the man and the music one song at a time. I'm your host, Henry Bernstein, and I'm so happy to have my dear friend, patron, number one cheerleader, and emotional support for anyone doing Bob Dylan things, Roberta Rakove.
It's great to be here.
I'm so happy you're here.
And this has been going on for a year now. I mean,
I know.
Really,
this is
exciting.
Literally we're recording this on July 1st. This is the day 1 year ago our episode on The Man and Me dropped.
Yeah.
So I'm running it back 1 year later.
Yeah, but you've done so many great shows.
Thank you. Well, last time we were in your house, so I appreciate you coming.
This is better.
Is it better? Oh,
there's no question.
I appreciate you coming to Songs of Experience.
And I hope everybody notices that we made.
Oh yeah, we're wearing our matching Tempest shirts.
Right.
That was done intentionally.
It was. But I've accessorized for it.
Perfect. So we are talking today about 1980s pressing on from Saved.
Yeah.
You know, before we get into the lyrics and everything, Roberta, I mean, we've just got to make mention of the fact that two very nice Jewish people talking about Bob Dylan's second gospel album there. I'm not sure what the irony is, but there's something there.
Well, you know, I think, and it's interesting that you brought this up. So I was late to the party on the gospel music. I think probably a little reluctant at first, and now some of it is my absolute favorite music. I mean, there's some, but I think it was. I wasn't hostile like some people were. It's just like, what, right? But I also think that, and when you said to me, what song do you want to do? The reason this song popped into my head is that it's obviously a gospel song, and obviously on his period of what we call the Christian period or the gospel period or whatever. But it's also really a song of resilience. And so, and that's how it actually came to me, was at the beginning of the pandemic, Girl from the North Country had opened, and this is the unbelievable conclusion of the musical, right? And then they almost immediately had to shut down because of COVID. And they released this song as a gift where the cast was doing it from their homes or from a park.
Right, it was one of those Zoom things a lot of casts were doing. Everyone was doing it.
But this one was particularly moving, and the choice of it, because we were at this moment in time that was really difficult for everybody. And you also had social upheaval. So, you had the response to George Floyd, and you had the Black Lives Matter movement. And in the video that they released, they interweaved that. So they interweave that, we were very excited, and now we have to worry about our fellow man. I mean, it's a very touching thing. And then they talk about, before they get into the song, they talk about, one particular actress says, this is our moment where we must be activists. We must be that better person. We have so much to do. And so it is a song about a very fraught time, and it's a song about being resilient in a fraught time. And the fact that we're meeting on this today, if I can talk personally for a minute, is that okay? Yeah. So I think that my day job was an advocacy and remains that. But for 30 years, I worked on health care as an advocate. I worked on Medicaid, and I worked on the Affordable Care Act. I worked on immigration things. And this is a hard day for me, because the day that we're doing this is the day that a bill passed the Senate where, the biggest cut to Medicaid in the history of the program. And my friends, those of us who have been in this for a long time, we were all texting each other today saying, this is a really hard day. We'll be better tomorrow, we'll be back in. But this song really resonates for me as, obviously it's a song about faith, but it's also the way that it's been used by others, the way it's used at the end of Girl from the North Country, is a song in hard times that gives you power. It it gives you strength, and I think so. It's a special song.
I'm so glad that, I mean, you jumped at you didn't even hesitate when I was like, what song do you want to do? Pressing On. So I'm so glad you explained that. I don't even have to ask you why this song, because that's such a beautiful reason. And I think the message of pressing on, my daughter asked me tonight, she said, what does that mean, pressing on? And so I was sort of explaining the idea of resiliency. This song was recorded February 13th, 1980 at the legendary Muscle Shoals Sound Studio in Alabama for the second Bob Dylan gospel album, Saved, which was released June 23rd, 1980. It was produced by Jerry Wexler and Barry Beckett, and its performers included Bob Dylan on vocals, guitar, harmonica, Terry Young on keyboards, Clyde King on vocals, Regina Havis on vocals, Mona Lisa Young on vocals, Fred Tackett guitar, Jim Keltner on drums, of course Jim's always there, Spooner Oldham on keyboards, and Tim Drummond on bass. And of course it was written by Bob Dylan. So like the first thing that I think is like really amazing about this song is that it's on what I would say is the better gospel album in terms of comparing it to Slow Train Comin'. Michael Glover-Smith and I have talked about this, that for whatever reason, Slow Train Comin' has that sort of 80s synth drum beat, and it just feels very like overproduced, whereas Saved feels like it was recorded live in Muscle Shoals, which of course it was. It's sort of like Bob Dylan's best when he's in a room with his people recording. And I think it really comes out. I mean, that opening riff of Solid Rock just kind of gets me every time and like really lifts me up. And I think this is the album that really sort of turned me towards the gospel period in a different context. So specifically with Pressing On and Saved, you said you came late to the gospel period, right?
I did.
Okay.
And I'm embarrassed about that.
No, don't be embarrassed.
No, I am. But because I mean the music is great. And some of the performances, I know we're going to talk about them, the covers, but also later on we'll talk. You've seen the performance in Toronto, I'm sure, that we have so lucky to have. Yeah. So there's so much that's phenomenal here.
I mean, truly. We'll get into the live stuff in a minute, but I can't remember if I've asked you this before, and I was recently talking on our last episode with Harold Lapidus about it. You've been a Bob Dylan fan for a long time, forever, since
since I was 18.
Yeah. So
and I'm really old now. So
So I wonder, from my Jewish friends who lived through that period, what was it like for you when Bob Dylan went Christian or converted to Christianity, or like, Harold told me it was just sort of, it actually wasn't that big of a deal, and it's sort of like, all right, this is what he's doing for 3 years, and then he'll move on and do something else. But do you have a memory of what that was like?
I remember.
Were your parents annoyed by it?
No. So, I mean, my dad was not even around anymore, but I think it was confusing a little bit, right? I've said this before. I've always been one of those people who thought, Bob's ahead of me, so I have to catch up. Right? And so I was never someone who said, why is he doing this? Right. But he's doing something that I haven't figured out yet, but hopefully I will figure it out.
Right.
And then, and I do think, I mean, we can talk about this, that when you're Jewish, you sort of felt you had some ownership of Bob, right? And
the second most famous Jewish person, right?
Exactly. That you have this
the guy he's writing about is the first most famous.
Right, and he's kind of ours,
totally.
So I think, but it really was just more, I would say, a little bit like, what is going on here?
Okay.
What? Because I didn't know enough about, we know so much more about Dylan's personal journeys than we do then. There's that great bit in, I know you've probably seen a million times, in the Leonard Cohen film in Hallelujah, and Ratso Sloman says, of course this would be a song because Bob is a spiritual chameleon, right? And so, but I didn't know anything.
It was just a strange thing.
It was something to sort of take in, right? It was something to take in.
Did you get those records when they came
No,
out? You
no.
just like didn't bother.
No. I mean, I didn't get them. I have them now, although I seem to be missing a couple of them. I was looking, and do people borrow them? I mean, where do they go? This is why I have 4 copies of Tempest, because including
plus the shirt.
Yeah, plus one from Europe, because they fall behind something. Then you sort of panic, thinking, "How can I not have this?" So I'll just order another one. Right? It's not that much money, and I realized I can't. I want to give one of these to Michael Glover Smith because he likes Tempest so much. I don't need 4 copies of it. He can have the European one, But
That's
yeah,
amazing.
I also think my understanding now, and if I'm jumping ahead, stop me, is it makes a lot of sense that Dylan would have a gospel period if we think about him marching through American music. Right, so he's done blues, he's done folk, he's done rock, he's done the standards, he's done the great American songbook stuff. Gospel is another piece of, it's a uniquely American music. And I've always liked it. And it makes sense that why wouldn't he embrace one more uniquely American music? He could have just embraced religion without doing the music, right? And there's other music you can do. Gospel's very specific, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit. But it has such a huge role in American culture, in American civil rights movement, all of those things. So why wouldn't he? I mean, he does Sinatra, he does. I mean, so I wouldn't have thought of that in the 70s because we didn't have all these periods to look at, right? But if you look backwards now.
And it sort of makes sense in marching his way through music. This is straight from Wikipedia, but I just wanted to read this. In their book, Bob Dylan, All the Songs, The Story Behind Every Track, authors Philippe Margotin and Jean-Michel Guston note how the song represents Dylan's, quote, belief in God in spite of those who block his path or doubt, citing the Gospel of John, chapter 6, verses 30 and 32, Dylan's main source. The 3rd chapter of Paul's epistle to the Philippians contains the phrase, press on, twice. They also point out that the song is an invitation to listeners to look towards the future, and we're going to get into that in a second. What's interesting is that the reviews of Saved, Kurt Loder, who he was reviewing Saved in 1980. I know Kurt Loder from watching MTV in the 80s and 90s, but he called the track serenely stoic, knowing that it is in part a melodic descendant of the band's The Weight. It utilizes a gentle gospel piano and some inspired lead and backup singing to make a simple statement of spiritual commitment. So, and in general, I think Saved was Pressing On was considered one of the brighter spots of Saved. And I think that holds up.
But I'm interested. One of the reasons I'm excited to talk to you about this is I'm not a musician and you are, and I'm curious to know your feeling about why it works so well from the musical standpoint. I mean, the lyrics are, the lyrics are the lyrics, and there are a couple.
There aren't many of them.
There aren't many of them. There are a couple really great lines in there. What's been lost has been found, and what's to come has already been. It's an incredible line. But I think it's the music that is carrying us, and I'm curious what your thoughts are as a musician about that.
I would say my knowledge of gospel music isn't extensive. However, I will say of my knowledge of spiritual music, Jewish spiritual music is. And I would say that spiritual music in general, religious music, repetition is huge. And this goes into chants and other rhythmic things, meditative rhythmic things. I think that repetition of pressing on over again, it's almost hypnotic. And it's sort of, by the time you get to the second time they're doing it, you know the song.
Yeah.
And then when there's a verse that is just sort of standard chords, I don't think the verses are the meat of the song. It's that repetitive, meditative, hypnotic refrain over and over again. And I mean, and like Jewish music is the same way. Like you repeat something enough so that the congregation can pray with you when you're a prayer leader. And so by Bob Dylan, somehow Bob Dylan understood that, I think, about gospel music. I think maybe it's Slow Train Coming, he didn't so much, but by the time Saved,
I think that's a good point. Yeah.
Saved is like a real, like it's a prayer book. Like you could have a group of people use it to make your way through prayer.
You know, it's interesting. And so when I lived in Rogers Park and for a long time, I was on the board of the Howard Area Community Center, and we had a fundraising concert with the children's gospel choir. And I brought my son, who I think was really little, he's probably like 4 or 5 at the time. He became so excited that he was rigid from the music. I mean, he literally was like this, right? And he couldn't go to sleep. We got home and he literally was laying in bed and just kind of, it just kind of somewhere else, right? And I thought about, I hadn't been to many gospel concerts before, but it clearly was music that had this, really energizing and focusing impact on a small kid.
I mean, bass and drums are really important. That's the rhythm section and in a gospel band, they're really important. You don't need musicians. You could just have singers in a gospel
and
group.
Sometimes you do.
And sometimes you do. And there's certainly great versions of this song that are completely a cappella. But I think there's something like the rhythmic repetition there's a reason people have physical reactions in church, I would say, in my experience.
Yeah.
Less so those same kind of physical reactions in synagogue. However, there's a reason that Jews shuckle when they pray, and they're singing. Like there is a certain, so I think the message of pressing on, it's not a familiar term, I think, in just...
It isn't gospel, right?
Yeah, right. But I mean, like in your conversation, it's not. So I think hearing it both feels like fresh and interesting and exciting, and also there's something spiritually familiar about it.
Yeah.
The first verse, Dylan's first verse. Many try to stop me, shake me up in my mind, say, prove to me that he is the Lord, show me a sign. What kind of sign they need when it all comes from within, when what's lost has been found, what's to come has already been. I love it. Like that as a question.
I love those 2 lines.
Which ones? What kind of sign?
What's been lost has been found, and what's to come has already been.
Why do you love those 2 lines?
I don't know.
There's just something about it that
there's
gets
something
you in
about it that gives you the sense of a purpose. The sense of something else that you're in the middle of. From a spiritual sense, right? You would say that you've been here before. It's coming again. You have a much more circular view of time, and I think those are really 2 great lines in the song.
I think it's almost too simple and surface level to just look at this and say, oh, it's about God, it's about Jesus.
I think it's about more than that.
It's so much more. I mean,
Yeah.
The first line, many try to stop me, shake me up in my mind. I mean, I feel like that is a clear reaction to the way the world, everyone is reacting to him doing what he's doing at this point.
And doing what he's done before.
Yeah, right.
I mean, if you think about
this is no different than you've got a lot of nerve,
Yeah, right. I mean, it really is. It's a gospel version of that, right? If you think, I thought the same thing, Henry, that it's, this is... one of the things I think that's so fascinating about Dylan is it feels like, I mean, we've never had the chance to chat with him about it, but it feels like he must pursue his artistic vision. Right? He must pursue his vision. And what other people think, I'm not saying it doesn't matter, I think it's relatively irrelevant to him.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to... He's very... there is a purity to his artistic vision.
Yeah, and I think like he has on more, like you said, more than one occasion has had to tell everyone, I'm doing what I'm doing.
I'm doing what I'm going to
right,
do.
right,
You don't
exactly.
like it, get off.
It's
I
like
don't care.
every point is great. And then, you know, the second verse
Yeah.
proves to me that he is Lord, show me a sign. But then he responds to that. What kind of sign they need when it all comes from within?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a deeply personal and autobiographical song for him in that moment.
Yeah.
And then, like what you said, what's lost has been found, what's to come has already been. He's messing with time. You know, he's done this before. We've seen this in Tangled Up in Blue, and you know,
how about the first one now will later be last, as the present now will later be past.
Yes,
I mean, it's the same. Yeah,
I think he doesn't think of time as a linear thing. I mean, and that would make sense in that he has been relevant decade after decade after decade with some, you know, dips of searching for that relevance. So yeah, I mean, I think like that's a really powerful first verse.
This is a really spare song lyrically.
Oh yeah, I mean we don't have much.
Do we have another song that's just spare
that's only two verses?
I mean, it's only two. I don't. Is there? You would know better than I would, but you know.
Now here's an interesting thing. In 2012, right when Tempest came out, Rolling Stone included "Pressing On" in a list of Bob Dylan's greatest songs of the 1980s, which is also like such an amazing list. Like, was that list written by Aaron Callahan and Court Carney and Harold Rapides?
They were getting that
right? And an article accompanying the list notes that anyone who saw Dylan live in 1980 saw an absolute killer band and Dylan singing with incredible passion and force, and noted that the show often wrapped up with Dylan at the piano belting out this song. So let's talk about the live aspect of this song. So this song was first performed in according
79 was it?
So the first one was in 79. So here's what
not many times.
No. So the song, according to bobserve.com, has been performed 70 times, and according to bobdylan.com, it's been performed 65. I actually did check, and sure enough, bobdylan.com is missing 5 shows.
Yeah,
so
I would go with Bob Serve.
Thank you, Bob Serve.
Thank you, Bob Serve.
Deliricus, thank you. You know, what's interesting is those 70 times were between November 1st, 1979 and May 21st, 1980.
That's it.
Never again, except for the covers.
Never again.
Why, Bob? Why?
I've
seen him do I Believe in You. You know, anyone who was in Seattle in 2000 saw Solid Rock. You know, like, we see Gotta Serve Somebody every night on the Outlaw Tour.
Yeah.
Like, this seems like a perfect one for...
It does, and of course, I went back, I looked at the Paul Williams book about those concerts, and he said, I didn't realize this, that it was the second encore, right? It was the second encore that he did. Right. And, you know, we don't have a lot of film of it, but we do have some.
Yeah, so talk about that one from Toronto.
So Toronto. So
I didn't. That 80?
And I did not. It was in 1980. I didn't realize that it was an encore performance. You know, but it was it. This was the wrap-up performance. It sort of makes sense. He starts the song at the piano himself, right? And he's playing the piano.
Which now, Bob Dylan playing piano to us, it's like ubiquitous with a Bob Dylan concert. But back then, it was like kind of novel.
And the stage is pretty dark.
Yeah.
There's a light on him.
That hasn't changed.
You know, right? There's a light on him, and there's a light on, you know. Yeah. And then midway through, someone comes to take his place, right? And at the piano, and he walks to the very front of the stage with just a microphone. So nothing between him and the audience. You know, there's no space between him and the audience. And that's very different. I mean, Paul Williams says this is his great gift. I mean, how often do you get to have that experience with him? Not very, right?
Yeah, and he's like sweating.
He's sweating,
and he's got the black eye makeup, you know, the eyeliner.
And then the audience at this, and I did not realize, I can't remember whose book I was reading. They said there was a period of time when you went to the concerts and all of these Christian followers of Dylan would be lined up ready to go because they wanted to be up front, and they were very demonstrative. And if you look at that video, I mean, people are pounding on the stage and they're holding up signs and saying, you know, Christ is King or whatever, and they're going absolutely nuts. And he's very controlled in reacting to the audience, and then he kind of, raises his hands and backs up. He's wearing a great leather jacket.
Yeah, the black leather jacket. Yeah, it looks so cool.
Great leather jacket.
Yeah.
And then he walks off and turns it over to his backup singers. And then he sort of strides off the stage, right? So there's a lot of drama. And I was looking at our friend Greatly Heron in Aaron and Court's book that they edited on the politics of power, Dylan's life, Dylan Setless, right?
It's over here somewhere.
And he has this thing where he writes about the residency that Dylan did in San Francisco, the Warfield residency, where he does 16 concerts at the beginning of his gospel tour. And he said the concerts are really like three-act plays. They're very carefully laid out. There is a real purpose to how they're done. We know that with Regina McCrary, when they first started, he right that night he says, we're missing something, and she tells him this story about a woman wanting to get on a train to see her son who was wounded from Vietnam and might die, but she doesn't have money for a ticket, and the conductor says you can't get on the train, and then she gets on the train, or she's kneeling or something, and the conductor said, Jesus said you should come on the train. And so every night she goes out and she tells the story. So
is this different than the story with the train about how he wrote Senior?
Oh, totally. It's another
it's
train.
a different train story from that period of time.
It's another train story. That was so funny. Yeah. No, that one had the guy with the smoke coming out of his ears, right? I love that.
Jessica and I were talking about our episode of Senior, and it was like, as you're saying that, I'm like, wait a minute, another train story?
Right, it's another train.
From only 2 years later.
It's another train and God story, right? And I had not thought of it. Henry, that's brilliant. And, it's really funny because when I was coordinating a class on Bob Dylan at an adult education class at the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, and when we got to Senior, I said, well, we don't know where the inspiration for Dylan's songs was, but this one we do because some guy had smoke coming out of his ears and his eyes were on fire. Right? So we do know, and they're all like, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? But I think Greatly points out that there is a very deliberate build to these concerts that's different from other concerts.
Yeah, I mean, and I think there's some similarity too with the like the Street Legal,
right.
The Budokan type concerts.
Yeah.
There's some careful choreography. I mean, I think right now, not as much, maybe not as much the Outlaw Tour, maybe this version of the Outlaw Tour, but I think like the Rough and Rowdy Ways Tour is very carefully crafted and choreographed. I think like maybe not all eras of Bob Dylan he was doing that, but there are definitely periods of time when he was very very careful. Obviously we don't know, but why do you think Bob hasn't brought this song into modern times, and not even modern times, like 1985 or something, or 90, or like...
He hasn't, but other people have.
Yeah.
Right? Other people have.
Yeah, it's been covered a lot.
Maybe he was done with it. I mean, again, it's not a complex song.
No.
It's not. It doesn't, it's very spare. So
right.
maybe he was just like, I've done what I can do with this song, and I'm done with it,
So some of those notable covers, so obviously there's one on that gospel album.
The Regina McCrary, which I'd love to talk about if we can.
Please, go ahead.
Because, so that, when I was going back and looking at covers, and I remembered this from when I first really was looking at the song, that Regina McCrary, we know is, Regina Havis was her, but she's the same person. That we have listed on Save, but different last name. She's part
Havis,
of so she's part of a. Ray Padgett has done a wonderful interview with her.
Books over there.
And also
it's right next to Aaron's book.
There it is, right next to Aaron's book. And the Oxford American, which my husband subscribes to, did a whole piece on the McCrary family, which is kind of they are a kind of gospel royalty, and so there's a lot of stories, if we have time we can talk about later, because she gives you a wonderful picture of what it was like to be playing with Bob at this time. But the cover she does is off of this terrific album, right? The gospel songs of Bob Dylan.
Right.
And
it's a yellow cover,
right?
And there's a whole bit that Bob does.
There's a great bit that he and Mavis Staples do in the last one. There's hilarious. Yeah, you can see Hawaii from here, Mavis. But so the cover we've watched of her when she does this, her son, the reason God gave names to all the animals was on Slow Train Coming, is that when she was singing with Bob and she had her son with her, and her son was like 2 years old, and he loved the song. When Bob sang it, he would just start laughing and go, "Mom, it's a pig." Mom. And Jerry Wexler didn't want the song on the album, but it went on the album because her son wanted it on the album. And Carolyn Dennis, who became Dylan's wife, was her son's godmother. They were very close. Her son was shot and killed when he was 20. And she, in the video with the Chicago Mass Choir that is on that album, in the video of that, she talks about that. She talks about, her only child dying and what this song means to her to carry her through that experience. And it's really kind of a remarkable and incredibly poignant moment of her revealing herself, but also the power of the music for her.
Yeah.
Which is, so I think that makes it just kind of an astonishing cover. And then you look, when you watch the Chicago Mass Choir, and I didn't even know what a mass choir was.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I guess it's a gospel choir, basically, right? I was not familiar with that term, but you watch them performing it, and they're just loving it, and really, really incredibly into it. So, but it is, I think it's a very, her story with the song and the link between her son and Dylan and Carolyn Dennis, and it's just so, it's an incredibly moving story.
That's beautiful. What were some other covers that you really like for this song?
Well, the Alicia Keys.
All right, so let's talk about it.
So
Alicia Keys.
And I have not seen the documentaries.
Oh, okay. So there's a great documentary about Muscle Shoals. I think it's called Muscle Shoals, but anyway, they go through all the great albums that were recorded in that studio. Grohl was in it, and there's some guys talking about Bob Dylan in it. But it ends with Alicia Keys playing Pressing On in Muscle Shoals. And there's already great sort of intertextuality between Alicia Keys and Bob Dylan, in that Bob Dylan name-checked Alicia Keys in Thunder on the Mountain,
right?
Which she, of course, loves, and she's, been, a big Bob Dylan fan for years and years. That version, I mean, anything she sings just kills me. I mean, she's just so incredible. You can see why Bob Dylan would name it.
And again, it's a finale song.
Yeah,
right? It's a finale.
It ends.
Movie, right?
It ends. It's like she does it, and then fade to credits.
Right.
And that's really the only way to end that movie. So, highly recommend that movie. It's also featured in another movie.
I'm Not There.
And I'm Not There. The song is featured in the Christian Bale, Pastor John
it's kind of
segment.
A little creepy segment.
Bale's character Jack Rollins, representing gospel era Dylan, performs the song on camera, lip syncing a version recorded for the soundtrack by musician John Doe. And Doe's cover was ranked number 52 by Rolling Stone on their 100 Best Songs of 2007. These are, of course, all things you can get on Wikipedia, but maybe you wouldn't click on Pressing On, and so I'm just telling you now. Dylan himself praised Doe's cover as being a once-in-a-lifetime recording in a 2015 interview. I mean, how about that?
And we're going to see, I think we're going to see him in Tulsa.
Oh, in Tulsa, really? Is he on that concert?
Concert.
Great. Fantastic. Maybe he'll play Pressing On. I mean, right. Yeah, they're doing stuff from 65, but maybe he'll just do it, because it's awesome. But like I said, it's sung in its entirety on Muscle Shoals, the Chicago Mass Choir with Alicia Keys, and features lead vocals by former Dylan backup singer Gina McCrae on Gotta Serve Somebody, the gospel songs of Bob Dylan, which came out in 2005.
And of course, it's covered, it's used, we both saw Girl from the North Country, I think, You saw it maybe more than once.
No. I only saw it the one time. You saw it in Chicago?
Yeah, I saw it.
We saw it within a few days of each other, I think.
Yeah, I saw it in Chicago. And now I had taped it because, well, you can access it, PBS on Great Performances has it. And again, it's the finale song.
Yeah.
You know, which I think it's interesting that it's the finale. It's, you know, for him, for Alicia Keys in that film, for Girl from the North Country. It's not the finale in I'm Not There. But there's something about it that, you know, is this wrap-up feeling for everybody, right? And you think Girl from the North Country is about really hard times that has kind of a weirdly happy ending, right?
Well, yeah, let's talk about Girl from the North Country for a second. So, we saw it. I think there is no question the music is some of the most beautiful, moving, incredible performances of Bob Dylan songs I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The story, I don't know.
Well, the story is built around the music.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the story is, they pick a time of struggle, right? I mean, they pick a time of struggle. And so it's not a perky.
Nor should it be. I'm saying, but there is some clunkiness and some weirdness to it that I think gets in the way of the storytelling. But the music saves.
I'm always so bad because I can never be judgmental. I don't think.
I mean, Bob was reportedly moved to tears in London.
And when they performed it in New York, he went to see it before. I guess I don't know if it was at a preview or whatever. And when the cast came out, they read a note from him that said, "My music is in good hands." And you could see the cast was all about to start crying and whatever. I think whether the story is clunky or it's not, you know, whatever it is. Again, it is a story about struggle.
Yeah.
And a story about, you know, the 1930s and that somehow the song really works in a time of struggle.
Yeah, it's about hard times.
It's about hard times, and you know, to get ready for this, I rewatched the series on gospel music that Henry Louis Gates does, and I was very taken with the episode about the role that gospel played after Martin Luther King was killed, and how the movement in the church they were trying to find their way back from this unbelievable tragedy for the whole movement, and how gospel is an integral part of that in a way that is, you know, very moving. And I think when you think about this song and how it's also used in that way in so many of the instances we see it used.
I mean, it's incredible that it's not an old spiritual from, you know, 100 years ago. It's amazing that Bob Dylan wrote this in 1980, and the way it's now used in gospel music and in churches, like it's like it's been around forever.
Well, he'll say that about a lot of his songs.
Yeah, that's true.
Didn't he say which song? I can't remember which song he said. Oh, that song's been floating around forever, and I just grabbed it.
Yeah. That's amazing. You know, there is another film connection, Roberta.
Oh, okay.
I think you're going to pick up right away. So in the song's second and final verse, Dylan writes, "Shake the dust off of your feet. Don't look back. Nothing now can hold you down. Nothing that you lack. Temptation's not an easy thing. Adam given the devil rein. Because he sinned, I got no choice. It run in my veins." So I think the fact that the words "don't look back" are in there, I think that has to be intentional.
It can't be accidental, right? You know what, Henry, I didn't even think about
really?
that. Yes, good catch. Yes, another film connection.
Yeah, well,
from our movie phrase.
So that Wikipedia article says that in that book that mentioned the story behind every track, they point out that the song is an invitation to listeners to look towards the future, which seems to deliberately evoke the title of "Don't Look Back," D.A. Pennebaker's 1967 documentary about Dylan, with the lyric, "Shake the dust off your feet, don't look back." And I mean, it's almost obvious that in a song called "Pressing On," which is the driving, repetitive force, that the words "don't look back." I mean, it's the opposite of pressing on. It perfectly makes sense that it's there, but the fact that there's a Dylan connection within within his canon,
Right.
I think also like is what he was saying in that film in 1965, released in 67. Like, don't look back. Like, I'm pressing on.
Right.
I'm moving forward, whatever my next thing is. And now he's and he's saying nothing can hold you down, nothing that you lack. But I think he might be talking about himself here. Like, nothing can hold me down. I don't know. What do you think about that?
It may well be, but it works for other people too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's
It's inspirational.
That's the resilient part of the lyrics,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Is no matter how hard things are,
Mm-hmm.
that you can overcome this. And I think that, that's why we see it used in the way that it's used. I think it's also really interesting to think what a long connection Dylan has to black music,
Mm-hmm.
and in so many different ways, and how comfortable he is in it.
Yeah, I mean, remember, he
yeah.
opened for Martin Luther King Jr., right?
Right.
And he was there at the
Right.
March in Washington. I mean, he's been around,
Yeah.
that culture for a long time, I think. I mean,
It popped into my head when I was thinking about the song, because I was thinking about that. That not everybody can do this, right? And it's a two-way street because so many black musicians sing his music and use his music. I was thinking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when he was inducted, and he said, well, and my guests here, Little Richard and Muhammad Ali, right? I mean, sort of, two iconic figures out of, one out of music and one out of
culture and sports and culture.
sports, culture, politics,
Activism,
and everything. And who does he invite to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? But Little Richard and Muhammad.
Well, he always
Ali.
wanted to be Little Richard, and he idolized Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
No, it's. I had forgotten that
Yeah.
those are his guests. That's amazing.
It's very interesting.
It's interesting that in both of these verses, he says something sort of generally inspirational or kind of a catch-all, but that does have these sort of specific biblical, very Christian things. Temptation's not an easy thing. Adam given the devil ring.
Right.
What do you make of that line?
Well,
like,
I don't know why he's talking about his own.
why is he talking about temptation here?
Well, maybe whatever. I don't know what he's wrestling with there. And then he's saying, I'm assuming that he's saying, this starts with Adam, right? And it's in my blood.
Right.
I mean, it's who we are, and we're always fighting it.
The Christian original sin. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Because he sinned, I got no choice. It run in my veins.
Right.
Again, he's sort of...
Well, and the imperfections,
Uh-huh.
right? I mean,
Say more.
Well, that a recognition of being imperfect, and a recognition of striving, and a recognition of trying to get to a place, I think is in there.
Amen. Yeah. What else?
Yeah.
What else, Roberta? Anything else about pressing on?
Doing this, Henry, and I'm so excited that we did it because it's really led me down. I've just been reading a lot more about that period and the tour and the concerts, and it's something that I'd love to know a lot more about than I did. This is not an era of Dylan's music that I had ever looked at very closely. And
You don't recall Bob Dylan coming to Chicago on this tour in 1980 and thinking, I'll go see him.
No, I don't.
Wherever, the Chicago Stadium or wherever he played, I don't know.
I mean, it's funny because Regina McCrary says she didn't even know who he was. When Carolyn Dennis called her up and said, do you want to do this? And she's like, who's Bob Dylan? Right? And she gets to their hotel. You've probably seen the story. She gets to the hotel room where she's going to audition. And she said, there's Carolyn Dennis and, I don't know, piano, whoever, and she's probably son. And she goes, there's this really weird guy sitting on the edge of the bed. And he's got sunglasses on and a hat. And and she says to Carolyn, who is that? And Carolyn says, that's Bob Dylan. She goes, well, what's wrong with him? But then she says it's really interesting, because she comes to it so fresh. And she said until they went to the Warfield, she had no idea of what a big deal he was. She knew about, blowing in the wind and whatever. And she said women outside the stage door were crying and fainting, She said, I had no idea. So it's interesting to get the perspective of someone who comes from a completely different thing.
Yeah.
And apparently she would call up, Dylan was sort of struggling with all these different people who were giving him religious information. She just put him on the phone with her dad, who was also a minister as well as a gospel singer. And then her dad would come out and meet them on the road if Dylan felt the need to talk. It's just, they're just great stories coming out of this period. You get a kind of a very different picture when you hear the stories of what was going on, in the dressing rooms or backstage, or it was a very different time.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was going through a lot in this period of time, and maybe he felt the need to press on, no matter what happened.
Yeah, so I'm glad and I don't know why he doesn't do it anymore, but it would be, I wish I had seen one of those concerts.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask you.
I would,
I normally ask my guests,
have you ever seen Bob Dylan live, and have you ever heard the song we're doing? I know the answer because we talked a year ago. We've seen him together a few times, and I love your, your famous answer of I didn't know you were supposed to count at the time, so you don't know how many times you've seen him. Remind me, when was the first time you saw Bob Dylan?
Okay, this is so embarrassing. I was trying to figure this out. The thing that you and Aaron just did.
Right, Aaron Callahan on Infinity Goes Up on Trial did a wonderful bonus episode called My First Time with Bob. Yeah.
So, and she asked my husband because he was at the Isle of Wight, right?
Yeah,
so he did it. I don't know. And I was
wondering why you weren't on there. I knew you lost count.
I don't know, and I was trying to figure out, and then I realized, if you think, so I was in college from 68 to 72, right? He was, and then he had a period where he wasn't performing for a long time, right? So there was this kind of blank.
Wasn't it sort of that period?
Yeah. So I wouldn't have had the chance to see him because he wasn't anywhere. And then I was trying to think, okay, what was my first concert? And I was kind of looking back, and I thought, it can't have been. We went to a very strange concert at Northwestern, but that was not until.
Did you see him in '74 at Chicago Stadium?
I did
January
not.
3rd?
No, I did not see him. I gave Ray Padgett a friend of mine who knew the guy who stood up and took off his clothes.
Right. Right.
So I said, Ray, I have a friend who was there and he knows Harvey.
Yeah.
And he said, it's my friend Harvey. And Ray, but I wasn't there. So I don't know. I mean, that's all fuzzy to me. I'm telling you, I wish I knew.
Sometime in the 80s?
Sometime in the 80s.
Okay.
I mean, really. So I felt like I had to say to Aaron, I can't do it because I don't know.
Okay, all right. I'll drop it.
There are concerts that are really burned in my memory, but I don't know. It was a busy
October
time.
2023 at the Cadillac Palace Theater, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah. Great. Awesome.
Yeah. The auditorium.
Right.
I mean, the baseball.
Yeah.
The baseball tour, which I absolutely adored.
Well, on the day that we're recording right now, July 1st, it's the 16th anniversary of the first ever Forgetful Heart, which was in Milwaukee at Summerfest, which I was at, and I wrote a Substack about it. That just a brief thing, shared a video. That it's just so interesting. This has nothing to do with Present God because he hasn't brought this song back, but 16 years ago, the first ever Forgetful Heart, that night he also played Desolation Row, and Willie Nelson was on that bill. And here we are 16 years later, and he's on a tour with Willie Nelson right now. Forgetful Heart and Desolation Row are on the set list, and it's with Dylan, what's old is new again. So I guess that is all to say.
What's been lost has been found.
Right. But I guess, like, he could play Pressing On. Why not?
I think he won't.
No.
But we're very lucky with what we're getting.
Yeah.
The fact that he's played Blind Willie McDowell is, I can die happy now. Yeah.
It's really special. Great. Any
No,
last words?
I think
we
that's
covered
it.
it all?
I'm really glad we did this, and I'm really glad
That's
to
it.
do it with someone who has more knowledge of spiritual
Oh,
music.
I don't think-
and frankly, more knowledge of just music.
Okay.
You know?
Maybe we're not. I don't know if I have more knowledge of
Yeah.
spiritual music, but I'm happy to talk with someone that has a vast knowledge of all of the things that you have vast knowledge of. So, and we'll have plenty of time to yap. Do you want to tell folks what you're talking about in Tulsa in case they're going to Tulsa?
Yes, so I'm excited. So I'm on a politics panel.
Shocking.
Yeah, I'm on a politics panel, and what I'm looking at are how Dylan's older songs resonate and give us a sense of where we are today in this kind of strife-filled period, and so that's what I'm talking about. I talk about race and income inequality and oligarchy.
All things that we need to hear Bob Dylan.
Yeah, so it's a very cheerful.
Yeah, sure. Well, so if you're going to the World of Bob Dylan conference this year in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the weekend of July 27th, on a Saturday, if you want to hear me talk about Bob Dylan and professional wrestling, you come to me in the morning, and then you go to Roberta in the afternoon, and you can get the full thing.
Political world and oligarchy.
There you go.
There
you go. Great. Well, thank you so much,
This is
Roberta.
great. Thank you, Henry.
Anytime. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Look for the next episode on the 15th day of the month in all of your podcast feeds. You can give me a follow on Blue Sky at Henry Bernstein. And if you're subscribing to Apple Podcasts, please take a moment to give us a rating and review. It's the best way to spread the word about the show. For a video version of this podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel at Songs of Bob Dylan. You can, of course, email us at songsofbobdylan@gmail.com. Thank you to my friend and mentor, Rob Kelly, for designing our fabulous logo, and to my mandolin teacher, Mark Mitchell, from the Old Town School of Folk Music in Chicago, for teaching me how to play the intro and the outro. If you'd like to help support the cost of hosting my podcasts, please go to patreon.com/gonzo3249. For $5, I'll show my gratitude by giving you a little shout out. So thank you to Rob Kelly, Roberta Rakove, Matt Simonson, and Christopher Vani. For $10, I'll also send you a piece of surprise Bob Dylan merch. So thank you to the girl from the North Country, Katie Sorovic. Speaking of merch, I have a store. Lots of fun stickers, shirts, hats, and other goodies for you to check out at etsy.com/Henry Podcast Store. Thank you to my Substack subscribers, Mark Godfrey, Linda Maltzby, George Pasella, and Peter White. You can check that out at henrybernstein.substack.com. Truly, I love you all. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.